Good morning, everyone. So it's nice to see everyone. Thank you so much for helping us co-create the Hokyoji Zoom Do. So this morning we have another Hokyoji teacher and priest talking for the second week in a row. It's a Hokyoji treat. We have Kyoku Tracey Walen. She ordained in 2008 and received Dharma transmission from her teacher, Judith Byakuren Ragir, in 2015, and spent a couple of years at Great Vow Monastery practicing and studying. And she is my favorite housemate slash Jill of all trades slash accounting and bookkeeping extraordinaire, and also a great sewing teacher in the lineage of Tomoe Katagiri. And yesterday I got to witness some of her magic work. I had a whole spool of thread on one of my garments, and she just grabbed a string and it cinched right up. And I was very impressed. I was like, what kind of magic is this? But anyway, without further ado, please, Reverend Kyoku.
Good morning, everybody. I'm very happy to be here in this wonderful place that all of you have been supporting. So I have a lot to thank each of you for. Today I want to talk about working with impatience. And it's been coming up for me a lot. So I'm taking a page out of Dokai's book. He says that he gives the talks that he needs to hear. So that's the way I chose this particular talk topic. And I've been noticing it's been a very, very busy year with a lot of things that I'm involved in. And I just, a while back, I just realized, I thought, I'm really encountering a lot of impatience. It's my intention to be as mindful as I can be. And so I noticed it, and I felt impatient as soon as I realized that was coming up. So I started by just saying, well, let's just, maybe it would be good to just check in about what I'm noticing. And what I noticed, I made a little list here. Exhaustion, irritation, anger, loss of confidence, discouragement, as in losing courage, easily distracted, starting one thing, 2 seconds later starting another thing, restlessness and anxiety, frustration with forgetfulness. I keep losing things I put down mindlessly, not wanting to meditate, blathering, talking too much and listening too little, just wanting to run away or shut down or block it all out, indulging cravings for sugar and foods that are crunchy and salty, staying up late, obsessing about work, commitments, lack of practice, and shutting myself away. Now, I'm sure that all of you know something about these feelings and experiences because they're human. And, after looking at this list, it was sort of like, it was almost a little too much information too fast after I wrote it down. So I sort of backed away from the chair and the desk, and I just thought, well, what's going on right now? And, what came up was, this is not good. This is all 5 of the hindrances: doubt, anger, restlessness and anxiety, torpor and sloth, and indulging sense desires. bang, I've got them all checked on the list. And, you know, the essential emotion or thinking that was aroused was, go away, stop. This is impossible was my story. That was what was coming up. I have to be patient, but I can't be patient. What am I going to do? Now, I do want to say this is not the only thing that's going on in my life, all these reactions, but they are the ones that I am impatient about, and that I these are the ones that are like the top 10 list for things I don't like. So I thought, I think I need to go back to the practice and take care of these, because I've been essentially just wishing they'd go away, or just trying to ignore them, or trying to do things that would make them go away. And I know from the teachings that that's a really good way to suffer. And so I said, return to the teachings. Return to the teachings. So how do I get patient when I am not, is my question. I stumbled a little while ago on a quote from a person named Wayne Dyer, who I think was on public television a lot, but I don't really know anything about him. And this quote was, if you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. And I thought, I think I'll put that on my door. Contemplate that, because I'm trying to change some things. So I realized, how am I looking at these things, and what do I know about how that impatience arises? So I thought it was worth pondering, and as I've been looking at it, I realized, well, actually, my impatience is a gift, because it draws it. I don't have to try to be mindful of it. It just arouses all by itself. Just comes up, it comes and visits me whenever it feels like it. And that maybe if I were to take that view, it would be helpful to me. It would be helpful to me in disengaging from my story of impatience, and help me engage with just this that's arising. So I decided to make impatience my object of continual mindfulness. Not that I thought that I could actually be continuously mindful, but I am committed to becoming continuously mindful, because it's such a rewarding practice. So Judith Ragir, my teacher, taught me about barking dogs. So essentially, impatience is the dog barking in the night to alert me to the fact that there's something that I might not be seeing and that I need to look at. And that has been helpful. One of the things that I can report is happening is that I'm able to spot the impatience more clearly and more continuously, and to kind of nod my head, as opposed to either that or really recognize close to the arising of the occurrence. Oh, I'm heading into suffering, which is not the same as pain. And even though we know that, sometimes it's not easy to tell the difference. So I looked for help from the teachings after that, and I'd like to share some of them with you. What I've been talking about is really, I realized, engaging with the First Noble Truth and our duty to really completely understand the nature of suffering. So this is in my attention realm, and in committing to make it a continuous training of sorts, this is exactly what's needed for us actually to be able to become enlightened and free of suffering, is to know it literally better than we know ourselves. And I'm still impatient to get to the non-suffering. So let me share with you some of the things I turned to. So one of the places I went for wisdom was this book. You can't probably read it on screen, but it's just called Calming the Mind. It's written by a Tibetan monk. He's called Gen, I'll probably mispronounce this, Genla Rinpa. And he basically practices living in a cave in the foothills of the Himalayas, or he was when he wrote this book. He may not be around anymore. I didn't think to check on that. But he led a one-year retreat in the Pacific Northwest, during which a group of Western meditators devoted themselves to the practice of meditative quiescence, or samadhi. And this book is the record of his oral teachings that he gave to the group at the beginning of the retreat. And of course, he was in retreat with them and also helping them as they went along. But this is really a treasury, as a real gift for just getting to the point. So I want to read a couple of things from it. All right. So one of the things that he says that I super duper appreciated was, remember that the first thing, how did he put it? The masters of old gave this counsel: first, pay great heed to getting the proper causes and conditions together, which I hadn't really been thinking about. Next, engage in the practice without agitation and without anxiety. Then, with the mind at ease, carry on to the end. So the piece that was really kind of fresh for me was getting together the causes and conditions. And let me read you here from a list in the, he has a kind of a list of things. He says, okay, what are the 6 essential causes to basically move effectively into stage 2, which is cultivating samadhi? So first, dwelling in a favorable environment, reducing desires and developing contentment, rejecting a multitude of activities, maintaining pure moral discipline, rejecting thoughts of desire for sensual objects. So I'm sure that each one of us has in this list something that we could say, oh, well, maybe I need to look at that more closely. He makes a point of saying if we find we're lacking in some of the causes, then it's crucial to acquire them as swiftly as possible. Because he points out that without the proper causes and conditions, for sitting down and meditating, it doesn't matter how much effort we put into it. Putting in a whole lot of effort in the wrong direction, it simply won't work. And it's nice to have that as a reminder. So that changed my focus considerably, just in terms of how I was looking at things. And I've always been kind of an overworker where I got too much on my plate. And I realized that's really a hindrance to the thing that I think is most important in life, which is freedom and happiness for me and all beings. And I haven't really realized that I'm responsible for blocking that particular road for myself. And if I don't do something differently, then the results that I'm trying to offer as well as receive can't happen. So it's a kind of brick wall sort of a thing. It's like, get real. It's not going to happen, and you should try to make it happen. I mean, it's sort of like, what are you here for? I can imagine being at this retreat and saying, what are you here for a year if you're unwilling and at the end of it? Now, being unwilling is one thing. Being incapable is another. Or, being not as good as you need to be about something. So he's very good about just reminding me how to not go overboard, which I think it can be easy to do when, Mary, you asked a great question last Sunday about that was kind of around, really, every moment, continuously mindful, because that's what Buddha seemed to be teaching in the particular sutta that Dokai was sharing with us. And I thought, no, Gen Rinpoche makes it really clear. It's like, don't go overboard. This is the middle way. And so it's not about never doing something that causes suffering. It's about recognizing it, benefiting from that recognition, and then setting up the conditions to develop the capability to not go there. Let me see. All right. I think that's all from him. So now let's go to Thich Nhat Hanh. The book that I want to read from to help you guys understand where I'm coming from and what he has to offer is one that I recommend to everybody. It's called The Heart of the Buddha's Wisdom, the Buddha's Teaching. And what's good about it is it's a soup to nuts teaching according to Thich Nhat Hanh's explanation and his own practice. So he indeed talks about patience in here, and he echoes many of the things that Genla Rinpoche talked about. So let me start by just sharing some pieces that I think are particularly helpful for everybody. First of all, even though patience is considered one of the paramitas, Thich Nhat Hanh calls it inclusiveness, and he chooses that because he said the capacity to receive, bear, and transform pain inflicted on you by enemies and also by those who love you. So that's how he's defining what we normally label patience. And in case it's important to somebody like Carl, who knows enough Pali to understand these things, it's referred to as Kshanti, and I think it's the Pali language. So sometimes English translations just don't do justice. So if you see Kshanti, you can go there and know that that's what we are calling patience usually. And what Thich Nhat Hanh says is when we practice inclusiveness, we don't have to suffer or forbear, even when we have to embrace suffering and injustice. So this is a very important point. Essentially, it's not that there is not pain. It is not that we do not encounter or need to encounter and try to, call pain less, something that arises just naturally because we're human beings. I think probably in the history of human beings, it could be said that there has never been a time when we have not engaged in war with each other, when we have not engaged in things that will cause suffering for ourselves and others. So part of what the Buddhist teaching has been about is, as long as we've got a human body, we are going to have desires. We're going to have stuff to deal with. We are going to have causes and conditions for suffering. But we are able to be free of them. Is there a path of non-suffering? He was like, yeah, it's you can be free of that, but it's not an easy proposition. You have to be committed to it. And Thich Nhat Hanh says, if your heart is large enough, then you don't have to suffer. This is that teaching that a lot of us are familiar with about the first arrow is, the thing that causes pain, but the second arrow is getting all upset about it, getting angry, and then creating a mound of suffering around it. So this, I think, is just one of the deepest forms of clarity that we all need to recognize is available to us, which is, no, we can't eliminate the pain that comes to a human body, but we can be free of suffering. So I thought, that kind of, for me, as I work with impatience, it's easier to be friends with it. It's easier to sit beside it when I remember that. It's like, no, this isn't easy. That doesn't mean you have to suffer. Or, as Thich Nhat Hanh will sometimes say, you'll suffer a lot less, which is just a recognition that, we're not totally enlightened in beings. We're just aspiring bodhisattvas for the most part. At least that's certainly where I come from. And then, of course, in here, because there's all kinds of stuff that is in the lists. So the 3 thises and the 2 that's are all in this text that I like to use a lot. And so he has a chapter on the 6 paramitas. And he makes this same point, really, that Genla Rinpa made, which is, to practice patience, we need all the other paramitas. So that and that kind of is helpful, I think, because even though I said, all right, I'm going to concentrate mindfully on when impatience arises, essentially because they're all connected, I'm both unfolding and need the help of all the other practices, like morality and meditation, etc. He says, if we practice without understanding giving, if we practice without understanding giving and meditation, we are trying to suppress our pain and drive it down to the bottom of our consciousness. Now, I can really relate to that. It's kind of like, can I just turn this off? Can I just kind of go blank? And while it works, it takes quite a bit of, at least temporarily, it takes quite a bit of energy. And what he says is, what Thich Nhat Hanh says is, this is really dangerous. That's the kind of energy that will blow up later and destroy ourselves and others. So it's an accident waiting to happen, essentially, if we take that route. And I know that from personal, it's, Impatience isn't going to go away because I try to sit on it. It will arise, and then it'll be more complicated and it'll be more powerful. If you practice deep looking, your heart will grow without limits and you will suffer less. I love that. He doesn't say, and you won't suffer. He says, give this a try. It'll make it easier. So essentially that first step of causes and conditions. He uses the metaphor of a garden, as does Gen Larimpa, and it's sort of like, if there's 4 critical ingredients to growing the crops and you don't have one, or you've got too little of it, an insufficient amount, all of your effort is wasted, and that's really suffering. You're using up all the energy that you could be redirecting and to improving your own and others' happiness. So it's just a whole, it's not an American approach to things. It's just sort of like, go get it and try harder. That's what, a lot of times I'm about, and certainly others. I've got company on that. So next thing I want to share is understanding is the only way out. So that's understanding is one way of expressing one of the paramitas. If you understand, you will suffer less, and you will know how to get to the root of injustice. So he's talking in this context about his experience in Vietnam and his experience about trying to be patient and all the other paramitas in both how he viewed and how he treated American soldiers and Vietnam soldiers, how he dealt with his own emotions, because he was right in the middle of that situation. And he had to really practice like crazy. And he wanted to help us understand, even this is not just, a dream. It is possible to be in the middle of that, and he's experienced it, and he wants us to be able to use his experience as a way of helping us understand the possibilities. And it does refresh. Preparing this talk and doing the work before and in preparation for this talk in terms of my own practice. This changing the story thing that I started with, changing the way you see things, really does change how things are. So this is what he's talking about in the teaching that I just quoted. When you are a victim of injustice, if you get angry, you will suffer 100 times more. And what I really recognize in my own quarrel with impatience is that expends a lot of energy. And one thing that I have consistently felt in my life is a deep, really almost holy respect for good use of life energy, upholding healthy, nourishing life energy, just a kind of veneration of that great mystery. And so that is the way that touches my heart. But we each have our ways of connecting to that, I think. And so it's a tremendously helpful thing to know something about what connects us to the thing that really moves our heart and opens our heart. And just be aware of cultivating those things that help us connect in that way, I think. When you have some pain in your body, breathe in and out and say to yourself, it is only a physical pain. That's something that I attune to, because there is still pain. I'm a pretty lucky person in that I have had relatively little physical pain in my life, but I certainly see a ton of it in people I care about and people I don't even know, and realize, boy, if I think I'm having a hard time, think about those folks, and who knows what'll be coming, for goodness sake. I'm 72. I'm going into my disintegrating years. So I'm probably going to need more, I'm going to encounter more things that I don't like. Sort of developing, doing exercises for those psychological as well as physical muscles is important. So he's basically saying you need to cultivate that, you need to practice, but it works if you do. Fear or hatred born of ignorance amplifies your pain. So fear and hatred, each of us knows something about those. Fear is something that is quite deep and just arises completely beyond our control. And if we work the causes and conditions, then we not only can face it, but it doesn't arise at all. So fear is, like my impatience, a real gift, but we don't have to suffer it. We just can see and know how it arises. It's like inviting Mara to tea. We know it's there. It's going to arise. Actually, I think at some stage of enlightenment, it doesn't arise anymore. And we probably, especially as older adults, in my case, we probably have some experiences of no longer being afraid of things that used to scare our pants off, or no longer worrying about things that we used to fret about. So we know what that gratitude for that release can be. And essentially, that's what he's trying to remind us from and help us to cultivate the causes and conditions for. Okay, so the last thing that I want to read out is something that I'd never heard of until I got this book of Thich Nhat Hanh's, The Three Doors of Liberation. And the one I want to talk about is aimlessness. So it's like, well, wait a minute. What's taking vows about if aimlessness is a door of liberation? So let me say a few things, or transmit a few things from his teachings. Aimlessness. I am happy in the present moment. I do not ask for anything else. I do not expect any additional happiness or conditions that will bring about more happiness. The most important practice is aimlessness, not running after things, not grasping. Oh, that sounds impossible, but let's read a little bit more. What is more important is not to allow your anxiety about what happens in the world to fill your heart. I love that. So there is distress, there is empathy, there is help, but not to let that own us. That we can practice, and when we say not let, that is basically to broaden our actual experience of how things are, and recognize that that's a cause and condition for the arising of just a very able heart that can connect and can be compassionate and can be accepting. What is most important is not to allow your anxiety about what happens in the world to fill your heart. So taking care of that heart's capability. And remembering that's what I do with that. It's like remembering, when impatience arises, it's like, well, of course it's arising. I'm a human being. That doesn't have to be what my whole day is about. We who have been fortunate enough to encounter the practice of mindfulness have a responsibility to bring peace and joy into our own lives, even though everything is not exactly as we like it. Without happiness, we cannot be a refuge for others, and we certainly can't be a refuge for ourselves. So we talk about cultivation of happiness, but it actually, I think, requires more determination, because as human beings, scientifically speaking, I'm told, we're 3 times more sensitive to something that's painful than we are to something that's joyful. So naturally, we have a negativity bias. So it especially needs some cultivation. Continuing, only 2 more. Ask yourself, what am I waiting for to make me happy? Why am I not happy right now? Now, those are really good questions. I've enjoyed the little bit that I've worked with them, but I realize how fluid the moments are, and that not forgetting, not getting so sucked into whatever the distress or pain or suffering is doing, but just remember, I've got another vector that I can cultivate here. So I close with this. Aimlessness is stopping and realizing the happiness that is already available. Aimlessness is the practice of freedom. And with that, it's a little full of quotes and stuff like that, but please share your experiences, ask questions, make comments.
Well, thank you, Kyoku. I could talk all day long about what you just said. So, but I'm not, of course. However, I'm very the first thing you said that really kind of resonated deeply with me is Thich Nhat Hanh's remark about patience going into inclusiveness. A few days ago, I was in what I would call a difficult, challenging meeting, and I could feel myself just trying to exclude something, and I had to work very, very hard to feel patient. And so I think inclusiveness means, okay, it's coming my way, and I just have to include this, whatever it is, it's happening, it's unpleasant. I'm just going to say, something unpleasant about it. And I have to this is where I am in my life, and I just have to include this in my experience. And so that was kind of interesting. And then when you do that, I think it does manifest as patience. And I would say only other people see it, not you. So that's one of my comments. Well, and go ahead if you have a comment.
No, just thank you. I completely, one of the reasons I decided to do this talk was I thought patience. I said, there is nothing worse than having somebody say, just be patient. It's like guaranteed to make me impatient right there.
It's
like,
been
if years. I could do that, I wouldn't be having this problem,
I think it's been years and years and years since I've ever said that to a person. So I learned the hard way that you don't say that to somebody. Just be patient. It's like, don't be angry, whatever. It's like, are you kidding me? Well, a couple more things. Can you repeat for me? I missed the word. You said, if we become something, we're going to suffer 100 times more, but I missed the something.
Oh, yeah, the 100 times more. Let me just see.
Anyone remember?
I don't.
Okay, well,
But it's in here.
then I don't feel so bad.
I'll find it for you.
Okay, it's not that critical.
Yeah, because it's in here. I can't remember what it. Yeah, I think it's a Thich Nhat Hanh quote.
Well, anyway.
Here we go.
Oh.
When you are a victim of injustice, if you get angry, you will suffer 100 times
angry.
more.
Oh, okay, angry. That, I get it, angry. Okay, well, now I'm going to tell you an anecdote because I haven't told anyone this story yet. And I kind of feel like I need to tell it. Especially the people around Hokyoji and the people who sit zazen every day. I think you've noticed I felt a little bit anxious in the past couple of weeks. And I missed a little zazen, quite a bit of zazen, things like that. And it had to do with on Friday, at least this is, a story, that I'm going to be leading my first, or chairing the first SCBA board meeting. I was a little nervous about it. And so I really prepared for it. And then, if you can believe this, 10 minutes before the meeting started, I lost my Wi-Fi. It's like it just disappeared. And I'm absolutely going ballistic. It's like I don't know it. Well, I didn't even know I lost it because I'm sitting there waiting to join the meeting. I got there 6 or 7 minutes early. I'm just waiting, and the host will let you in soon. So I'm just sitting there, and I'm sitting there for 5 minutes, and nothing happens. And then right at the time when the meeting was supposed to start, I'm still not admitted to the meeting. So I called up the administrator and said, "What's going on?" And then I realized I didn't have a Wi-Fi connection, and I didn't know how to get it back. So anyway, I'm telling you this story because I haven't had this experience for many years where I just totally lost it in terms of my mind just panicking. And I even went back to my childhood and said, God is personally punishing me right now. He's just, and excuse my pronouns if they're not, what do you call them? Not, what's the word when, it's not appropriate, but anyway, I won't go into it, but I call God a he sometimes. That way I can really swear at him, and I don't swear at women as much as I do men. But maybe that's practice. But anyway, I just went crazy, and it was maybe, and it took 20 minutes for me to actually be able to join the meeting. And there's probably just out of that 20 minutes, there was maybe one moment or two where I just said, okay, I'm going to settle down. What am I going to do? What am I going to do through this? But other than that, it was just like chaos. And actually, what I all of a sudden, this had just occurred to me that I could plug in a little wire here and be hardwired into the internet. It's sitting right here in front of me, but I just haven't done it for 2 years because the Wi-Fi has always worked. And so I totally forgot about it. And then when I plugged the hardwire in, everything was okay. But it was just such an unusual experience that I haven't gone off the rails like that for so long, mentally. And then leaving the mental behind, and it says, oh, it's only physical pain. Well, that was another, when we have physical pain, and then you said, well, it's just physical pain. However, there's another, I'm going to tell you 2 other things. And this is like years ago too. Once, and I was having one of my eye surgeries, and the anesthesia wore off. And, this person had a needle sticking through my eye. And, the anesthesia kind of stopped working. And, I wasn't thinking, oh, this is just physical pain. It was like I was kind of like jumping off the operating table, except they did have me strapped down. But anyway. And then the other thing is when I had a knee problem the other day, several years ago, a doctor was drawing fluid off my knee, and he hit a nerve in my knee. And that was the same situation. You just go into this world where that is the only thing that's happening. So anyway, I did like your comment about aimlessness. That's nice. Different way to think about aimlessness. And anxiety doesn't fill your heart. I'll have to keep working on that one, but got a ways to go. So anyway, well, thank you for your talk. I just wanted to share those things. Thank you.
I did just put the titles of the 2 books in case anybody wanted to get those and didn't quite manage to do that into the chat box. How about you, Ken?
Did you say Ken?
I did.
Yes, thank you. Oh, so thank you so much, Kyoku, and all of you down there. It's so nice to be able to make this much of a contact. I really, really appreciate it. Appreciate what all of you are doing down there every day. It's wonderful. And you really kind of touch to the heart of what it means to have this kind of responsibility with your talk, and I really appreciate it. And it feels really, human and who we are, in touch with it. And I really appreciate that. I'm very glad for your folks down there. Thank you for your great effort.
That means you, Bo, and you, Alex, by the way. Our bows to you. Thank you. Mary, if you're moving your lips because you're talking, you need to unmute.
I think perhaps Laura has a question. She has her hand raised.
Oh, goodness.
Not a question. Thank you so much. Not a question, a couple of comments, I guess. I really appreciated you saying getting impatient with impatience because I can relate to that very much. And like just yesterday, kind of the ridiculousness that can happen and happen so quickly with impatience. So driving and someone crowding me from behind for no reason. And just sort of like, what the, can you wait a second? And then getting impatient with the impatient person behind me. So then now I'm impatient. and so move into the other lane. And of course I'm indignant. You couldn't wait 2 seconds. And then of course I'm like, well, you're being the same way. You're doing the same thing. So at any rate, it made me think of all that and how easy it is for something to spread and how easy it is to just compound the same thing.
Yeah. Worse than COVID.
So, but I like how then you're able to laugh at yourself for those things, because it's a great reminder of, oh, okay, as quickly as that arose, you can also recognize it, laugh at it, and let it go.
That is the gift to me of my Buddhist practice. I came late to it, but it's completely changed my life.
Mhm.
Even my mother said to me at one point before she died, she said, "Are you happy?" Kind of like, "Am I detecting happiness in you?" And I said, "Yeah, I am." And
Well, thank you, and enjoyed the talk very much.
Thank you, Laura. Hi, it looks like Ryusha wants to unmute.
Yes. The last 2 years have been very trying for me because I'm not a patient person. And my skylights started leaking 2 Memorial Days ago. And between the insurance company and contractors and blah, 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 supply chain issues, calling up a contractor and he's obviously on the road and he says, "I'll call you right back." And he doesn't call me back at all. So just staying in touch with these people. And then on top of that, my cataract surgery for the first eye did not go well. And there was many months of sustained non-healing. And so I realized this is all part of my conditioning, because this is a lesson I learned from my father. When anything was wrong, anything that needed to be done, he did it right away. He just took care of it right away. And there was a certain freedom in that, is that he didn't have to think about it. He didn't complain about it. He just went and did it. And I think it was because he was raised on a farm during difficult conditions. So they would do things that needed to be done before the next bad thing happened, so that they would have the time to address the next thing that came up, because there was always the next thing that came up. And this attitude really served me well when I was a software engineer in the corporate world, of just doing what needed to be done, bing, 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 and just not thinking about it. And it also, what I gained from working with, taking classes from Dr. White, he was a karma yogi, and basically the karma yogi thing is, you make the effort and you don't concern yourself with the fruits of your effort. You just do your best and let it go. But it was very difficult going through this, and it just came down to, well, that's who I am. This impatience is just part of who I am. Yes, that's the acceptance of it. And that's kind of, and there's more to my life than that. And so, like, not letting it fill my heart, but it's like just accepting, well, yeah, that's how I'm conditioned. That's how it came about, and it's somehow that conditioning came to me, but my younger brother somehow went in the completely contrary situation. He was one of the great procrastinators that I ever know. So I don't know how we grew up in the same family, and our conditioning was so different, but that's just the way things happen sometimes. So it's just, I don't know, just the things you have to, as Dokai said, you have to allow into your life. This is this is your life. This is, my impatience is part of my life. So there it is. I don't expect it to really go away. I just expect it to have a slightly different flavor, slightly different, not quite as calling continuously. So
Yeah, that that little saying I was talking about seeing differently. I've gotten to the point now where I realize every time I say, "Well, I'll just have to allow this," and then kind of this little thing comes up going, "It's already here, whether you allow it or not."
yeah.
I'll make one more comment. Particularly addressing what Laura said. She says it can go away just as quickly as it arises, and I don't believe that's true. I mean, if you look back, I'm just from my personal life and experience, it's like something like that. It can just, someone bothering you in the car or driving, or even this thing I was telling you about, it just can explode in a moment, but it's not going to go away in one moment. We can work with it, but it takes work to okay, calm down from this explosion that just arose. So that's my issue with you, Laura. I'm not criticizing, but just from my personal experience. And thank you, Rushan, for your comment about your father. Most of you know my relationship with my father was not particularly easy, but he did tell me once, and this is crystal clear. The moment he told it to me, he said, "Ron, you got to face your problems." So that's it. I mean, and he did. He modeled that, and he had 150 apartments that he managed. I mean, owner of, and there was not a single day where there was not some kind of problem. Somebody wasn't paying their rent or whatever. But he never procrastinated. He just went after the problem. The only thing about him, he wasn't always nice. When someone didn't pay their rent, he would get pretty mean and intimidating, and that I didn't like. So, but anyway, that's it. That's all I have to say. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Dokkai, for sharing that.
Thank you for the talk, Kyoku. There's a lot of great comments. I think that what Dokkai said about including, I think that's really helpful. Like, you don't have to focus, but you just kind of have to open the door and let that be there, and also aimlessness within the practice. That's a hard one for me to kind of really let settle, I guess. I'm very task focused and task oriented, but aimless can kind of tie into the practice of gratitude. For the past few weeks, we've been really admiring the growth on Little Squirt, some of the orchids that are growing, and just, it's one of those things where it's like, yeah, I know it's there. It's nice to think about, but actually taking the time and looking at it and really letting it be there and be there with it. It's that practice of gratitude and reminding yourself or reminding myself what is beautiful in the world, and that really helps. And just taking that deep breath in that moment has been really helpful. And so thank you for this talk.
You're welcome. Thank you for your support here. It's been really nice to have both you and Bo here. And of course, not neglecting the continuous appreciation I have for Carl, who's also here.
Well, I guess that calls for a comment here, Kyoku. So, every once in a while, my wife Akio is kind of organizes lining up these speakers and the hosts and things like that. And I always tell her that, well, if you need me, you can kind of plug me in somewhere as an emergency speaker. And so I think about, topics to speak on. And the last thing I was thinking about was not impatience, but patience. The cultivation of patience, which has been a big practice for me in the last few years. And I think there's still room to give another talk on that. You think it's a rich territory to explore. So anyway, thanks, Kyoko. It was very interesting talking.
Well, I'll look forward to yours.
Whenever it's going to be. Yeah, sometime.
It'll
Thanks.
happen, I'm sure. And I should also like to say that I appreciate your practice of patience. I see it.
You and I have had multiple opportunities to practice patience together here, working on the books. It's Kyoko and I have several times sat down together for 5 hours straight, going over spreadsheets together, learning our way through it. And to do that without any major conflicts, I think has been quite the accomplishment. So it's been good working with you.
No injuries.
There we go.
We salute y'all's diligent efforts. Thank you.
I think we might be ready for a close.
Hi. Well, thank you, everyone. This has been a wonderful Sunday morning, as usual. We could not do this without you. Thank you very much. This is a very special place, and it's an honor and a privilege to be able to do this work and this practice here. So that is very much appreciated from every one of you. So thank you. Coming up in the next couple of weeks, we have Rohatsu. Yay! That starts on December the 3rd. And Kyoku will be co-leading that along with next week's speaker, Myo-o. And We Are Just Sitting retreat starts this Tuesday and goes through Sunday. On the 18th, we have a work weekend, which is always a lot of fun. And on the 11th, we have a healing retreat from a group in the Twin Cities. And connect with us on our all of our web presences, Instagram, Facebook, on our website. You can find previous talks from our speakers that are in our Sangha through our website and on our YouTube channel. And let's see, am I leaving anything out? Tell your friends, come visit us. We love visitors. So thank you all again. Thank you for your support. Thank you for your presence. And yeah, just a big thank you. So if we can close with the 4 vows, you'll find that in the chat. And we'll see y'all next week. Beings are numberless. I vow to free them. Delusions are inexhaustible. I vow to end them. Dharma gates are boundless. I vow to enter them. The Buddha way is unsurpassable. I vow to realize it. Thank y'all.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.